Yeah, it's good. The book is basically about how, as the world has become a lot more comfortable, a lot easier in a lot of ways, we've removed a lot of challenge in our lives, we've lost a lot of things that make us healthy
Yeah.
and happy. And sort of by reinserting certain forms of discomfort into your life, you can sort of take back your health, your happiness, et cetera. And so far, it's been going well. Seems to be resonating with people. I think a lot of people, there's this sort of idea. I think people intuitively know that anything that really improves humans, it's not always easy, right?
Right.
Whether that's exercise, diet, improving a relationship, whatever it might be. But I think people have been surprised to see how comfortable the world has become in a lot of different ways, and how really the science of why we thrive off of challenge. I think people have this idea in the back of their head, and I'm sort of bringing a lot of the science and a lot of the rationale to it, where they're like, oh, this, now I understand it,
Mm-hmm. Now, when you talk about, I agree. I think people, we've been kind of forced to get comfortable, right? For the past year plus, year and a half. We're just now kind of coming out of this pandemic, and, a lot of great quotes, especially from the SEAL community as it relates, get comfortable being uncomfortable is kind of a common theme.
Yeah.
But I guess the question is, why is it so easy to get comfortable? Well, why do you know what I mean? Because we know that challenging ourselves is a good thing, and we need to be able to, increase mentally, emotionally, physically, in all those places. But how do we end up in that state? Just
Very simple. For 2.5 million years of human evolution, life was challenging. Our environments were tough. Everything to survive took effort, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you could try and do the easiest thing, if you could try and do the most comfortable thing, that would keep you alive. Think of things like avoiding exercise. You would never move if you didn't have to, because you're just burning energy that's hard to come by. Things like food, if you came upon it, you'd try and overeat it, because we want to get fat to have those resources for when the next lean times came. Avoiding the weather, avoiding temperature swings, all this stuff, this drive for comfort we have, it used to keep us alive for basically all of time.
Yeah.
Until our environments switch to those of comfort, because the Industrial Revolution happens. We start to make life easier, more effortless, because it makes sense from an evolutionary perspective, right? But now life has become so easy and comfortable that we've sort of become victims of our success in a lot of ways. So think about how we've engineered movement basically completely out of our days. Like, a lot of people could take 1,000 steps and survive if they wanted to now, right?
Yeah.
If you want food, there's like a million different options, and it's just
delivered to your front door.
Yeah, delivered. You don't have to work for it or anything. For work, we sit behind desks, and this is all great. We're surviving, right? But are we really thriving? So you start to see a lot of problems with this, and things like the obesity rate, chronic disease rates, even things like the mental health crisis we're having. You can tie this to the fact that people aren't challenged in fundamental ways that teach them something about themselves.
Yeah. No, I've got a question. Have you watched the series Alone?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So in what you're saying, and for those of you that haven't watched Alone, you should. It's basically taking different contestants, and they place them in these very, extreme environments. Each season is a different location. And when they show up to their site, there's literally a big Pelican case full of camera equipment, and that's it. And then they get to take 10 different survival tools. And then they're on their own, and the strongest wins. So whoever stays the longest wins. There's no set timeline, nothing. It's just day one. You've got your 10 tools. You have your camera equipment. I'm guessing the producers and people probably give them a list of things they have to do every day so that they have plenty of content to create a TV show. But they literally are, they build their shelters, they get their fire going, and then they start getting food. And what you said resonated so much about, we try to burn less calories and do the path of least resistance so that we can then survive, which is interesting because that's exactly how the show ends up every single time, where people are trying to save calories, sit around and do nothing so that they can just last one more day on the 4 berries and the 1 fish they caught. And then they do it again the next day. They sit around and they eat that 1 fish and the 4 berries just so but they're playing a game, and they're not really, I mean, true survival means you're looking for help. You're trying to get rescued. There's other things going on. With them, they're just trying to survive each day, which means they're just being lazy because they don't want to burn the extra calories, right? I mean, it almost goes hand in hand with what you were saying.
Exactly. Well, think of exercise. Exercise is this thing that we made up, right? Like exercise didn't exist until like 100 years ago, when all of a sudden people are like, oh, we seem to have these health problems that are tied from the fact that like our lives no longer force us to move. And we got to figure out a way to do this now. So we invent gyms and treadmills and stuff like that to get it back into our lives. But for nearly all of time, exercise didn't make a lick of sense. You know?
Yeah, no, you're right. Well, and back then you were having to actually physically work each day.
Yeah.
In order to survive, and it's kind of where this homesteading phenomena has become so popular, and people have this dreamy idea that I'm going to buy a piece of land and we're going to have a cabin and I'm going to grow some vegetables and I'm going to raise some goats and it's going to be easy. I'm not even going to have to go to the grocery store. But the reality is no, you got to work your ass off. Like there isn't a minute that goes by on a homestead or a small farm that you're not having to do something, because if you let one thing fall behind, then you're done. Right. And so, but going back to what you're saying, we didn't need to exercise because you were too busy working your ass off to create the food or maintain the environment in which you live in. And things have just gotten a lot easier now with food being delivered. And, let's face it, our homes don't require too much because technology has improved so much that, you're not having to maintain the fence line, because fence lines are usually done right the first time. Right. You just have a swimming pool now that you have to maintain.
Yeah, exactly.
You're listening to Can You Survive This podcast? Thanks for tuning in. Please make sure to subscribe, rate, and share on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your favorite shows.